plan, right, needs to be completed essentially before the auction,
Well,
you
and
know, so that
yeah.
we can bring our partners into the plan and have a plan for the auction, right? So that's the push on the time, is that it's all kind of going fast, because we just found out about the fall potential auction.
So, let me, another question while we're talking about the budgeting and funding for this. The legal work for the possible rural TIF district, when would you expect that to get those to proceed to start that process, and how long would it take for? I'm guessing from what, another one that I'm working on in Lake County, if everything comes together, right, it's 4 to 6 months.
It's probably close to that, yeah. Obviously, Joe's got on his agenda the residential TIF meeting that.
We're not dealing with nearly as many personal figures I am up there, but.
Yeah. Yeah, the May fifth meeting is, on your agenda, you want to
So that-
go to that?
You know, so that's a May 6th meeting at the Delphi United Methodist Church. Community invited, is that correct? At 6 p.m., and that's a residential tip / opportunity zone, is that what you said?
No, I think it's mostly the residential.
Okay, so-
Because it inform people as to what the TIF, you know.
So what that means.
What
But
it
it's
means.
the fifth, the date's the fifth, May fifth.
May fifth, that's what I thought.
May
Sorry,
fifth.
I missed that, yeah, it's the fifth.
Is it, I have the 6th, is it the 5th?
It's the fifth at 6 o'clock.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So, I'm just asking you to come if you can, as the commission, right, it'll be one of our educational experiences, because residential tip is new, so we're gonna be on the forefront of some of that knowledge that will be coming up. And then that, we begin to see what that's being thought of by the public in the county and in the city. And so, I'm just putting that out there to please come if you can on this.
You know, that, answer a lot of questions, of course, about what the impact would be.
So how much total acreage is being sought?
So the, Bower properties are about 275 acres.
Okay.
And 200 of it,
Yeah.
approximately 200.
And then who would actually fund the purchase? Like who's going to the auction to?
We don't know that yet.
We don't know.
Is that like on one of these 3 that are sharing this, or is that on an investor? I mean, how does that process work?
So if an opportunity fund is established, it could be through an opportunity fund, which would be multiple investors. It could be a public-private partnership that is set up to make that offer. We don't know that yet. That's, all of those balls are in the air.
It could be a builder, right?
Like, could it be the city?
It's possible that it could be the city. It's possible that it could be a TIF or an RDC that decides it's going to bond for that. Those are among the possibilities. More likely, it's going to be a fund, but, those balls are, as I say, are,
Yeah, I just didn't know how that worked.
yeah.
And so, we don't know the invitation list, nobody does yet, but, so you could have private people, right, that want the land, right? You could have Mayfield Farms Incorporated, one,
Yeah, I mean,
But once the
on
land,
behalf
right?
of what we're wanting
You
to
could
do
have
here.
XY Inc. builders.
So you're gonna go buy the land for us?
Yeah, and give it.
They do, they do.
I'll vote for that.
And so,
Well,
it could be.
There's commitments on the backside for
Oh, yeah.
support.
It could be a developer, it could be a builder, it could be a farmer, it could be a
Okay.
private person, it could be.
Okay.
And that's, you know, where the partnership would come in, that public-private partnership. So, you know, the city could have a stake in it, it could be, you know, and all of those would obviously, we're at the front end of this. We need to get ducks in a row fairly quickly because the fall is not that far away.
Yeah, but.
Is that something that, like your committee with Julia and Josh and Jake will be looking at
For the Rural Opportunity Zone Initiative,
as far as like the land purchase or the auction? Is that something that falls under your umbrella or is
not
it?
really for that Rural Opportunity Zone
Okay.
initiative. That would be more local discussions with the EDC, the two RDCs. Are we, one of the things that we could decide to do, with this area is to establish an opportunity zone. We'll certainly get advice from the Rural Opportunity Zone Initiative, if that's the proper direction in which we should head. But the focus of that is really that whole opportunity zone that, you know, that we looked at before. This is just really a fairly small piece of the census tract.
Yes, Mr. Swenson.
Jeff, I said, so we don't get confused here, I'd like to go back to the funding for the study
Okay,
and get back to the rural TIF district and where that might go. So I'd actually make the motion for, funding of not to exceed $11,000 for the, housing study in partnership with the city and Carroll County Redevelopment Commission.
I'll second that.
and Gail was second. So, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion carried unanimously.
Do I have to write all that down when you just said, in the form of a motion, are you gonna do that, or how does that work?
So, we'll get together.
You could watch the movie.
Yeah, we could.
I,
So,
I,
with a motion to approve,
I wanna read the book.
the motion to approve funding for the concept study.
Not to exceed $11,000.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
And I didn't mean to cut the other one short.
No, that, we were
kind of migrating.
but so in the perfect world, your timing would line up a little better, but we just can't, we can't let this auction pass without us being ready. And the study is how you bring partners into the mix, right? And you see what you see, so thank you for understanding that. So the next thing, we're gonna have a residential TIF education thing on May 5th, if we all get to go. And then, I've been in conversation with Matt Eckerly at Baker Tilly, who would love to come in person now. He's did it before, but he would come in person now in May and talk a little bit more in detail about the nuances of some of this TIF stuff, which is public-private partnerships that we have issues with, how do we work with the city, how do we work with the, you know, how do we, some of those kinds of things which we all have questions about on how we're gonna administer this TIF in the future with money, right? It's easy to administer the TIF when you have no money, but when you have money, it becomes harder. And there's always issues, like, with the city, or with, you know, with the county, or how do we work all those MOUs out? So he wants to come, we had chosen May 19th, okay, at 5 o'clock, and checked that this building was open, the mayor could come, I think I had talked to Jake about it, and so we were talking about having our next development commission meeting. Will it? I don't know. Is it? I tried to keep it on Wednesday, thinking that was.
May 19th, or you say May 19th?
May 19th is a Wednesday. I
5 o'clock is really hard for me.
Okay, so,
You can do 5:30,
okay,
if that works.
I don't think it matters to him, if it's all right with Gail and Randy and Lisa, and is that 5:30 okay? Cause that, we pushed you a little to get you there. And so, come with your questions to that, and, be prepared to have some, then we can begin to review some of these other projects a little more in detail that require public-private partnership, the canal, and some other things, so. And so, as a commission, we've never had money, so we haven't had a budget, but we do now have money, and we need to have a budget as required by the statute, which I reviewed. So, and my budget is preliminary, because I wanted people's eyes to see it, in the fact that this 25,000 is something that's what it would cost if the Delphi Redevelopment Commission became the sole creation entity for the residential district. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it would, right? It may be that we share all those expenses to set it up. But I wanted to see how it affected the bottom line, and it hits it pretty hard. If you have both of them in the same calendar year, you hit your funds pretty hard. Now, I thought if you put another 20,000 at the end of the year, you end up with 22,000. Not so close. So the question is, do we want to approve the budget with a tentative 25,000 in that for legal cost, or do we want to discuss how to change it? And I don't know how to do that. Right? So we want to have the money. We want to have the money so everybody knows that we might have those legal costs if that's a decision we make. We don't spend the money unless we vote on it anyway, but. So we can approve the budget as presented. We could add our fourth quarter draw, right? With the assumption that it's between 20,200 or so, and then that puts it at 21,701 for the actual December 31st. So we could approve with those changes. I should make those changes this evening and send it out.
Well, anything this will be our one and only budget. This is what we'll approve, and then this is what will go before the city council. It doesn't have to be approved by the council, but it just has to be entered into the minutes. So anything we wanna spend this calendar year has to be in this budget before we approve it.
So, my idea then would be to add another project or two to that. That would be $10,000.
I don't know that we have,
You know, that we don't need it, we just can say pending projects or something.
Yeah,
We
I don't
wanted
know
a
that we have.
category for that.
to designate the projects, do we? I mean, if it's just,
And we have a list of projects that we wanted to try to accomplish. Maybe there's one that comes up, you know, that we have the money.
So you would designate the project, is that what you're saying? You would just-
so what if, are we
Yes,
strapping ourselves in if we designate projects, or can we just do projects for 2021 and put a dollar amount beside that and not break it down?
That was my idea.
Do you know, Shannon, from the past?
We've never had a budget, we've never had.
I didn't hear.
Okay, see where it says projects for 2021?
Right.
Do we wanna just leave that alignment out to the side, put 36,000 or whatever we wanna fund that, and not actually break it down? And, like strap ourselves to certain designations.
Right, that's my,
I don't know how that, I'm asking.
You know, I've worked budgets for so long that there's usually two different budgets. There are the working budgets where you've identified what that total number is. So if you put a 36 in there, a total amount for, I don't care if it's 40,
Right.
that this group would actually have to come up with, okay, what is it that makes up that 40?
So we have to actually show it broken down.
You wouldn't have to.
You don't have to on a budget, but
That's-
your project line item would actually have to say X amount of dollars, and your working document would show that, you know, you discussed this, and this. There may be 4 or 5 different items in there that you discussed.
we got,
And then it allows you to take advantage to prioritize them as they come to you.
so if we, what do you think about adding 15,000 for the project? That leaves us probably 5,000 or 6,000, it would all be spent at the end of the year, I don't wanna get it too close to zero.
John, I have a question, I have a concern.
Okay,
And it doesn't have anything to do with the finances, but it all has to do with, the rural TIF district.
It's a residential too.
Residential TIF. Is the city council 100% on board, understanding it and 100% on board with it?
The city council hasn't been introduced to it, except, you know, they will be introduced at the May 5th meeting. They've been invited to attend,
Monday,
so.
Jake
it's,
a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, Jake presented to the council this past Monday and, explained, you know, sort of thumbnail what residential TIF is, but the purpose of the May 5th meeting is to, get community leaders, from the county and city, because there are other potential residential TIFs throughout the county, so it'll be, from, multiple areas.
So that's one concern that I have. The other concern is, if we do this, because I'm very familiar with these, and all the background that goes along with them. And there's just it's like stellar. That was all new and people didn't know what it was, but when it was all said and done, the majority of the people were happy with what happened. And this would be the same. So I guess I'm wondering, are we 100% on board with this board on board with the residential TIF and the possibility of actually managing that TIF through this board? I mean, you have to be we have to be 100% on board, all the entire board, or we're gonna, it's gonna be a task to get through.
Right, so, I don't think we all have to be there at this point, we just had to acknowledge the possibility of an expense coming in 2021 for residential TIF. We're still being educated. But if you don't put it in,
Right.
then nobody knew about it, right? And you're wanting, you didn't have to put 25,000 in for residential TIF. So that was my idea. Was we're on the path of getting a PhD, right? And so we're not there yet, but I'm inclined to consider it, right? Just because of the multi-generational benefit to Delphi,
Oh,
So,
right?
is what you're suggesting then, Joe, for the budget, to take it back to just a project line item where it's 46,000, and you don't break it out, it's just what your budget would be to spend on projects?
Oh, I see what you're saying, all three of those,
I'm saying right here where it says project for
just
2021.
go over there and put it
Come over
over.
here and put a total amount. I don't think it's wrong to break it down to show, like you said, where the money is going, where the planned expenditures will be. I don't think that's wrong. I also don't think it locks us into that, because this is not like your typical line item budget.
Right.
So we have some discretion to move the money around, I think,
You do, yes.
this is new to me, but that was.
So would we put the 51,000? That was my idea, is to add 15 to that.
Okay, where are you getting the figure of 50?
Okay, so 15,000 additional project, 11 and 25. And put that under project for 2021 being 51,000?
So are you saying that your expected revenue for 2021 is?
20, yeah,
It's double.
20,200. And then for 2021 is 20, oh, I see what you mean.
That's it,
Yeah,
so,
so we have 39,000.
Yeah, so,
so that's the total amount we have available to us to
Right.
use this calendar year.
Right.
so you can't add that.
Yeah, I think,
So
I was
it has-
thinking I'd put in 20, but we were,
Yeah, you can't use it twice.
yeah, we would keep that, like the goat.
And then there is no other revenue.
Oh, no, we gotta print it
No
first.
Potential revenue coming to us this calendar year that we're aware of at this moment in time.
Maybe a little more than 20,000 to 12, depending on development and tax. No,
I think
it's
that's.
not a
what
little.
we-
So that's,
Yeah, I would just bring that $36,000 amount straight across from projects and then show the breakdown.
You know, another thing you could do too is you could leave number 1 and number 2 there as they show, and put miscellaneous projects for $10,000 or something like that. And that miscellaneous would all reflect back to, the list of.
the project list that we already have. Let me get easier on this. We still need to add a little beyond the 36. So I was thinking,
Well, you don't have to leave a balance at the end of the year, you can take this 15,000 down here and just tack it on to the 36. I mean, there doesn't have to be a designated ending balance, just put that 15 on one with the 36 and then, because if we don't use it, we'll have a balance and there's nothing wrong with that.
we want to do the 11,000, the 25,000, right?
And 15 on one,
And 15.
especially 37.5.
37, what is it, 37? 37, 5.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the budget as amended.
Second. Sandy, second. Everybody understand this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion unanimously carried. Thank you all. So I will work on this and get it out so that we can make sure we have it straight, because I got a lot of scratch.
And did you put 37,501 there?
Yeah, in the,
For the dollar amount, and then there's that.
in the project.
Okay.
We don't have to put the ending down.
Right, there doesn't have to be.
We just look.
I'm gonna make another motion that we table the review of project list and current requests until the next meeting.
Yeah, we need to because of some more knowledge on what we're gonna do on that, on it.
Other than the one that you already approved.
Right.
I didn't hear the motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table the review of project list and current requests, number 6, or number 4 on the agenda, until the next meeting.
Okay.
And then that would be after the presentation, that would help us a lot on some of the issue with the city.
I'll second.
And then the final other business,
We
real
have to
quickly.
vote on that.
Hmm?
We have to vote on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just like that.
Okay, so Gail made a motion to table the review of project list and current request until after Matt's presentation on May 19th. We have a second for that.
I second.
Randy
A
seconded.
second, Randy All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. So, what I was saying during my distraction was on the other business, I wanted to give you the request from the Show and Shop Shrine. And so, I think we mentioned it I think we mentioned it in the January meeting, but I think I just went over it briefly. And so this was, and I wanted to get it in the minutes so we knew what this was. They would like to do a presentation to us. I don't know if we have time on the 19th, but the Shonda Shrine is looking to do a $1 million plus expansion at that location with a building and water for people and a meeting building and all kinds of things. And so the request then affects the city because they want water. And so we have to work out that agreement. And they also were asking about 10,000 in assistance from the commission.
As far as for what?
For help with establishing water to their facility.
And this, correct me if I'm wrong, is this a not-for-profit organization?
Yes.
So the $1 million investment will not have.
So I want to get that, I mean, it is the church, so, you know. But they would like to do, Suzanne and Doug would like to do. I told them we would have to wait until May when we learn the rule.
So where's it going to go to Delphi for?
Do what now?
I don't remember what you said, why they're wanting, what they're planning on doing out there.
For them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would think 2022 before they raise the money. Is that?
She doesn't have this.
Oh, she doesn't know?
Did you get the packet, the next one?
The packet.
No, I thought.
Got that, I didn't get up and hand it.
This Schoenstock's been a project that they discussed with me, I think, my first year in office.
Yeah.
And it would be a conference center and, just miscellaneous things out there for like conferences and things like that through their church. So it'd be it's a nice it'd be a good location, and I think a nice gateway piece to go there.
I'm surprised at the multi-thousand number of these. I think it was in excess of 3,000, don't see that.
My biggest concern in that area there is that we've already gotten to the point where we kind of put that first stick on the stick house. We have a small sanitary system out in that area that could probably handle them. I'll go back to something I think you probably heard me say before. West Delphi, North and West Delphi is an ideal location to be able to work with. I think this board, the city, and the county on a planning grant for water and sewer in that area. And those planning grants are available a couple times a year. I just don't think it'd be wise to start spending, you know, 10,000 or 50. When you get into what you get into in that area there, $100,000 isn't gonna go far because you got limestone, and it would be nice to build it out to the point where you could tie other things into the system and
Right,
be part of the grander plan.
That's the idea with them, it's not a simple little connection. What's the whole plan? What's the plan? And that's why the city has.
I don't know, maybe,
Be involved.
they may be able to drill a well there, others have got wells out in that area.
In there.
So,
Might be possible. In terms of wastewater, that is part of the scope that we are looking at for certainly providing, wastewater and water accessibility to West Delphi is on that, is the potential project, so.
Water, I mean, other people that have tried to grow their businesses out there, the problem hasn't been water. They've got wells, the water is not really good quality, but the problem is you can't get the, leach systems perked out there, so.
Yeah.
They need, out there, they get more issues with sanitary sewer than it is with wells.
Yeah, and, you know, even mound systems and things of that sort are really problematic for the septic side.
Thank you all for coming. Any final questions or a motion to adjourn? You don't see anything else?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn, we have a second,
I'll second that.
Andy will second that. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you all.